Hot take. Men are more oppressed than women.
Yes.
You could make a good argument for it.
There are ways in which
War,
men are
pretty big
oppressed,
one.
and I think those are also due to the patriarchy. Like in a society, you said this is a society built by men. So wouldn't you think a society built by men, would the consequences of that would be kind of men's fault? And I'm not saying that there aren't ways that
it's
men
not
are
clear to
oppressed.
me if it's their fault because they are men. Like,
It's not no individual.
A stronger argument to be made would be people in positions of power, regardless of their gender. It's not because they're men.
Look at who's in power. Look at who's been in power for the last 1 million years.
Okay, and?
There's a hyperbole. It's men.
Okay.
Because, I mean, we were talking about earlier with, like, the essay stuff in schools and, like, women essaying. That's, for instance, a position of power that women usually aren't in over someone else. In that position of power, they used it. So it's nothing about men's inherent, like, drive to hurt people or themselves. It's about when you're put in that position of power, some people use it poorly, and some people don't even know that they are.
That's cool, but I think men are more oppressed than women. What do you think about that?
Agree to disagree? I can tell you more, but like I gave out my point, and you can respond to that, or you can repeat your original statement.
Okay, so I guess I can back this up a little bit. So I think all feminist arguments just about oppression are dead on arrival because all of women's collective grievances fall flat in the face of just one. There's many male grievances, but there's one in particular that I think absolutely dwarfs any and all of women's collective grievances, and that is forced military conscription. You can add up all of women's grievances together, and in my view, they do not. I know it's hard to make comparisons and it's hard to compare and contrast. Forced military conscription is worse than all of women's collective grievances. You can whine about it all you want, but I would say the suffering that men have exclusively experienced during warfare throughout all of human history is orders of magnitude greater than, as I've said, all of women's collective grievances, supposed and real.
When was the last draft?
When is the last? Well, the last draft was in the Vietnam War. And
then before that, it was World War II, right?
When did women get? When did women get the right to vote?
White women or which?
All
women.
All women.
Super late. I forget the exact year, but it was white women like 50 years before everyone else, or before the last.
Is that true?
Yeah.
I'd like a fact check on.
Do you want me to do it?
On that. In any case, women's suffrage 1920, but women frequently.
Same for men.
Right, but you're saying when was the last? Here, let's talk about it. The Ukraine war. We can talk about the Ukraine war. So there's currently 2 major ongoing military conflicts in the world. We might be on the verge of World War III.
Yep.
So, and in the event that happens, women are not subject to military conscription. You want to talk about inequality. Y'all aren't subject to forced military conscription. You don't have to register for the selective service. The last time there was a draft was in Vietnam, and I know you want to use that as when was the last time there was a draft? It's actually very dismissive because here's a very big point.
Fear?
Hold on. What? Hold on. I want to go into the fear thing, but there are men that would be alive today had they not been drafted. And there are men that are alive today that were drafted. Vietnam, Korea, World War II. I mean, there's very few World War II vets left, but so there are men who would have been alive today, right now. They could have been in this room that aren't alive because they were drafted in Vietnam. And then there's men that did get drafted in Vietnam and they have like major PTSD, serious issues, casualties of war, they've lost limbs, serious issues. So yes, the ramifications of forced military conscription are the negative consequences of that are alive today in men.
I'm gonna say something, and you're probably gonna be like, "That's crazy."
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Unlikely.
So there's ways to get out of the draft, right? I would much rather cut a toe off than be a woman, than to have to deal with what women deal with. You can skip the draft if you have any shit wrong with you. I would cut a fucking hand off. I'd cut a foot off.
Okay. I've never heard that argument when it comes to the draft.
Like,
You're pro draft dodger.
Wait, so what were you saying about the fear? What were you saying about the fear?
Like,
what did you mean when you said fear?
Well, it seems like you think that you're more oppressed than me. Would you say that's true? It's okay if it is. And so if it's just that one thing, when it's just that one thing, it's like it's kind of unlikely that it will, and if it does happen, that fucking sucks, and you will have it harder than me.
I actually do. I mean, I'm not of an age that they could always expand the draft in the scenario of some catastrophic world war. They could extend the age, but I did have to register for the selective service. Men who don't face consequences. You can lose certain benefits as a man that doesn't apply to women. So I mean.
Also, that's the consequence of being physically stronger, Like, you're able to protect yourself in ways that I can't protect myself, and as a consequence of that...
yeah, but if
it's not your fault.
You're a feminist, you should be in favor of gender equality, so women should be subject to military conscription.
No one should
The
be
consequence of being able to
military.
birth a baby would make this... So you could make that argument.
Yeah.
But hold on.
Wait, what's your point?
No, but...
Take his point and just go with it.
Can't blame men for being bigger and saying that's why you got to go to war, even though that's what we've kind of done.
I'm not mad
like
at you about childbirth.
I mean,
I'm not
a lot of women are saying like, "Hey, what are you doing?"
Right,
but also, when you're going to war, you're not like fist fighting either.
Yeah.
Right,
So
and
it's like-
women could be drafted into like support roles, even if you're
That's
not.
what happens when you take away abortion rights. You're drafted into a support role. If you have like a kid that you didn't want, that you were forced to have, you're drafted into a support role.
No, but the state is not forcing you to have sex, and if you want to get an abortion,
But some people get forced to have sex.
Okay, but you do realize most. If I concede that some abortions are the result of rape, will you concede that most 99% of abortions are because the woman can't financially support the kid, or it's like the sex was consensual that led to her getting an abortion?
Yeah.
Okay, so like you're making the argument from like the what's it called?
An abortion is also like a physical procedure. So I'm doing the same thing. If I cut my toe off, that's a physical procedure to get out of this draft. It's not a perfect comparison, and it's funny to say these things because they're kind of ridiculous, but I think there is a little bit of validity there.
Validity to what?
To like comparing these two things.
What two things?
The draft to anything else I've compared it to.
Well, it's not even just the draft. It's actually warfare in and of itself is like something that throughout all of human history, I know that women can now enter the military.
Well, now
but it's like something that's pretty much exclusively been within the realms of men. And military, there's no glory in like I guess for some people they get some sort of glory from it, but like warfare is brutal in ways that you cannot imagine.
Insane.
Yeah.
And also, like, can I just ask you a question? What were the dates of World War I? Do you know?
I know like a range.
Sure, tell me the range.
Like
You don't have to tell, like, just year. Just the year. I'm not asking for like date or month.
early 40s.
No, World War I.
Oh,
World War I. Yeah.
1910, 1912, somewhere around there.
To what?
I don't know how long it lasted. I think 10.
Okay.
I don't know.
1914 to 1918 was World War I. What about World War II?
Like 1940 something.
To when?
That one lasted a good like 6 years. I think.
Do you want to give a range or?
Like between like it stopped at it was
Okay,
capped at 50.
So it was 1939 to 1945.
Yeah, that's 6
But I feel, okay, it's like if you don't even know when the two most catastrophic events in human history occurred, I almost feel like you don't have the requisite knowledge to assert anything about the ways in which women are oppressed as compared to men.
I don't really want you to tell me that I don't know about these wars, though, just off one detail.
But if you don't
like,
even
I know about the Axis
ranges...
powers and the Allied powers. Like,
okay.
I know about
no,
that. No,
actually, I'm just for fun. I'm just curious. 3 Axis powers, 3 Allied powers.
I get the names mixed up, but I know it was...
Into the mic. 3 Axis powers.
I know who was together. I don't know
3 Axis powers. 3 Axis powers.
Well, if I say the wrong team, you're gonna
just
you're
go
gonna
ahead.
Be like, see, when I know a bunch of information about it, I'm not studied up on this like you are because you're a professional debate guy, So I don't think that's a fair comparison. That because you have like statistics and you like I took I learned about these things and I knew them, I can tell you shit that I know, but I don't think that's fair.
That's fine. I mean, I'm sure we could go back and forth for a very long time. I don't think it's worth really lingering.
It's also 12:28 a.m. and you're trying to get me to name Axis powers. Like,
yeah,
fuck you.
That's fucking based.
You're a fuckhead for that.
Okay.
I think there's advantages to being women and disadvantages, and there's advantages to men and disadvantages to being men. And what a lot of people, not you suggestively, but what they like to do is go, well, this is why the world is fucked and it's a man's system because look at all these things I have to deal with. And you go, yeah, but you also have some pretty good ones, like not going to war or like anytime. I'd love to see a statistic on how many years men serve for the same crimes that women do. I'd love for someone to do
they've done.
I guarantee women crush it in the courts.
Yeah,
crush it in the courts for the same crimes. And I don't go, well, look, the system's set against men. Like I could make some good arguments for that.
You want to hear something crazy, somewhat crazy related to this? So, for example, we often hear that, well, black men are more likely to be victims of police brutality or police misconduct than white men are. And that's evidence of racism in the police force, right? However, that if you compare that to the rates of police misconduct and police brutality directed towards men compared to women, if you're comparing that to the police misconduct, the comparison between white men to black men, the rate between men and women is like, I think it's 8x or 10x greater. So is that therefore evidence of sexism?
Right.
Systemic sexism within the police?
It's whenever a bad thing happens to a guy, it's like, that's life. That's just how the world goes. And I'm not putting this on you guys, but like when something bad happens to a woman, it's like, this is a fundamental systematic outrage. And you're like, no, it's just, life's not perfect. Shit happens to both of us. And good things happen to both of us, and I don't cry about the bad ones.
It's not, I don't think you can compare the difference between men and women because that's in our brain. That's hormonal. Like, if I can't really say anything else besides, at the very least, the hormonal difference is so drastically different that affects a lot of the reason men and women are different.
Sure.
Different races have the same brains. So it's not really comparable, like a different race's oppression versus oppression of a man versus a woman.
Word?
Word.